Joining us now for our weekly partnership segment with The Lever, the founder of that outlet, the one and only David Sirota. Great to see you, sir.
Hey there.
So you have some very timely reporting about the Republican response to the seeming granting of their every wish and desire, which is the imminent overturning of Roe versus Wade, a project that they have been dedicated to, creating this outcome for like close to 50 years. But the reaction to it is very interesting. So you detail some of this. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. You say a McCarthy-era law aimed at pro-choice protesters. Conservatives and corporate media pundits want to use a Red Scare statute to arrest people demonstrating against the GOP's looming anti-abortion victory. So just set this up for us, David.
Sure. There's this controversy within the controversy. I mean, there's the leaked ruling, and then there's a lot of the commentary about whether the leak was legal or who leaked. There's also the controversy about the protests against the ruling. And just to start out here, it's worth saying that it's a pretty pathetic state of affairs in media and in politics where the top line story is the reaction to the extremism rather than the extremism itself. But the reaction when it comes to protest, I think, is something, it tells us something. The reaction has been one saying that protesters shouldn't be allowed to protest near where Supreme Court justices live. Now, there's a lot of hypocrisy about this, considering the fact that the Supreme Court itself effectively legalized protest near the homes of people who work in women's health clinics. That was a ruling in the mid-1990s. Somehow we're supposed to forget about that. But there's now also a call by folks like Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri to resurrect a 60 or 70-year-old law from literally the McCarthy era that was designed to outlaw protest outside and near the Supreme Court by alleged communists. And what Hawley wants to do is essentially use that law he's calling for it, to arrest, detain, and jail protesters anywhere near the homes of Supreme Court justices. Now, let's be clear. You can agree or disagree with the tactic of protesting near a judge's home in a legal, peaceful way. You can say, I don't think that's a good tactic. Maybe you say that is a good tactic. Wherever you come down on this, there's something deeper here, which is the attempt to criminalize basic protest, dissent, demonstrations. That's what's really at issue here in trying to resurrect this law. A law, by the way, pushed not only by sort of McCarthy-era extremists, but also by segregationists.
Well, and this isn't just happening at the federal level. I just saw this morning Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill today that makes protesting outside of a person's home illegal. So, and he has been, he has become kind of a leader in launching this type of legislation that other Republican state legislators then pick up. I think it also very much exposes the lie of the idea that the Republican Party is the quote-unquote free speech party.
Totally. I mean, these are the same people who have been running around decrying so-called cancel culture and screaming freedom, who are now trying to quite literally criminalize protest in America. And again, I go back to this idea that you can say, I don't think it's a good tactic, or you can say, I think it's a great tactic. The debate over whether a kind of protest is effective is a different debate than whether the protest should be allowed to happen. And we have a situation now where you literally have politicians trying to outlaw forms of protest. And obviously there's the other hypocrisy here. I mean, we're still only a year and a half away from, since the January 6th insurrection, the violent takeover of the Capitol. And so the same party, in some cases the same politicians, in Josh Hawley's case, the guy who raised his fist, kind of egged on that insurrection and that riot, the same politicians are now trying to outlaw a kind of protest. And I think what's clear is that they're trying to outlaw a kind of protest that they don't agree with. In other words, they don't agree with the message. And so they want freedom of speech for their message and not freedom of speech for other messages. And that's not the way freedom of speech is supposed to work. And I just want to add one more thing here. The First Amendment of the Constitution, not like the 20th Amendment or the very First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution enshrines a right to peaceably assemble. And that's what's really at stake here.
Yeah, and I think we've also already seen in DeSantis's case specifically how these statutes are used very selectively. So he also passed a law that I think banned protest on any roadway in Florida, and that was in response to the Black Lives Matter protests. Lo and behold, when it was protesters against the Cuban government who were blocking a major roadway, suddenly, for some reason, the law did not apply.
That is not free speech. That is free speech for me, but not for thee. And that's really the issue here. Look, free speech is not an easy thing to protect because it means protecting speech that you don't like. It means protecting speech that you don't agree with. The Supreme Court has issued rulings in the past protecting freedom of speech that even uses violent rhetoric. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I don't think that's good for the discourse. I don't think that's good for the culture. But the point is that once you start encroaching in a real way on free speech, free political speech, okay, non-threatening speech in the sense of non-imminent incitement of violence. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to pro-choice protesters, okay? When you start encroaching on that, you start cutting away at, again, the First Amendment. This is foundational. And what I worry about is that we are living in a time where we are losing touch with things that are difficult to protect, ideals that are difficult to protect, freedom of speech. I mean, here's the thing. When I see the Washington Post or media outlets saying that they want restrictions on different kinds of protest, I mean, the press, the fourth estate, operates under the same freedom of speech. And it kind of blows my mind. Like, do these folks really understand the laws under which they are protected and how encroaching on those laws threatens the ability of, for instance, even the press to do its job?
Yeah. Also, obviously, the case with the silence on the prosecution of Julian Assange. The last thing, David, that I wanted to ask you is, what do you make of the fact that, okay, Republicans, the religious right, have been building and working very studiously on this project for literally almost 5 decades. They now are on the verge of the cusp of victory. They're about to get the end result of something that they have been engaged in for a very long time. And they don't want to talk about it. They're upset about how it came out. They want to talk about the leak. They don't want to talk about the protests. They don't want to talk about this monumental political victory that they are on the cusp of achieving. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think they know they have victory in hand. I mean, they know that draft ruling, if it becomes the law, is the victory they want. They don't have to talk about it, and they know talking about it is probably not great politics for them heading into the midterm elections. If you look at polls on the issue, so they already have the victory, and so what they're trying to do tactically, in my view, is focus more on the controversies surrounding the victory and to try to scandalize dissent. They're trying to scandalize the outrage about this. And so, and they've got a willing and complicit partner, I think, in corporate media, which I think has focused as much on the protests, as much on the leak, as on the substance itself. The question is whether the Democratic Party heading into the midterm elections can actually focus the public on the actual issue at hand, which is the ripping away of reproductive rights from 166 million women in the country.
David, thank you so much for your reporting on this and so many other issues. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And we'll have more for you guys later. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.